Good evening. Thank you, Cole. Thank you so much for being here. It is almost overwhelming for me to welcome you all. Just logistically, some of the artists are coming from overseas, and so they are just a few minutes delayed, but we're gonna get started because we wanna welcome you first. My name is Alessandra Rengo. I'm Distinguished Professor of Moving Image Studies here at Georgia State University. I'm the founder of the Liquid Blackness Group, which now we like to call Study Group, 10 years ago, and founding editor-in-chief of the Liquid Blackness Journal of Aesthetics and Black Studies, which is now publishing with Duke University Press. Thank you so much. This will not make me more precise, but I'll try. Welcome to something that feels for us like a family reunion, which includes some members who have been here many times, and we're very grateful, and some new members to the extended family that we are anxious to welcome today. I'm very grateful for your presence and their presence, and most of them are taking a pay cut to be here, just to be clear. So they're coming because they believe in what we do. It has been 10 years of Liquid Blackness, which means that my daughter Margot, who's here and who's now 19, has shared with me this project, for more than half a life. This has been a labor of immense love, and not to occupy too much time, and to invite you to spend this weekend with us so that you get to know them all. We have listed the contributors, supporters, all the group, all the effort, and some of which, and we've known it for 10 years, a lot of the effort is the one that goes invisible. We're trying to honor them all, and we invite you to meet them all. Tonight, we're gonna have a short screening of a piece that I encouraged group members to make. Anna Winter, Cedric Simmons, and Josh Cleveland have made a high-concept 3.5-minute piece that showcases or at least reflects on what we consider to be the Liquid Blackness method. And then we'll have a screening of As Told to God Thyself by the Umma Chroma group, and I will let Michele Prettyman to introduce that piece. I'm just introducing the speakers for tonight. Michele Prettyman, who is gonna be in conversation with the artists, is someone who I feel has always been there and always been ahead of everything. She was at the beginning of Liquid Blackness. She's now an editorial member of the journal, and she is personally a scholar of Black cinema and visual culture, a film curator, a public intellectual, and is now assistant professor at Fordham University. Her research explores Black aesthetics and cultural history, experimental modes of filmmaking and storytelling, and Blackness at the intersection of aesthetics and spirituality. In 2019, Michele was named Artistic Director of the Tubman African American Museum's inaugural film festival, and she works tirelessly to amplify the creative voices of others through her consulting company, Daughters of Eve Media. We'll have tonight, and now I'm gonna list them in the historical order of their visits to us. Bradford Young is a director, installation artist, and one of the most consequential cinematographers working today. He has collaborated with Ava DuVernay numerous times, including on Middle of Nowhere, Selma, and When They See Us. He's a multiple Sundance winner for his cinematography and was Oscar nominated for Denis Villeneuve's Arrival. He shot Solo, a Star Wars story, after which he graciously found the time to come for a visit with us. And he has continued to spearhead a number of essential projects, including a company that makes camera lenses specifically dedicated to independent filmmakers. He's a dear friend and mentee of Haile Gerimes at Howard University, and he has channeled the legendary filmmaker's pedagogy towards a new generation of image makers that is now affecting the aesthetics of global everyday styles, from commercials to fashion to high art. Nkiru is a Grammy winner for one of her multiple collaborations with Beyoncé, Black Skin Girl. a filmmaker and installation artist who has taken some of the most powerful insights developed by Black music's radical tradition to shape groundbreaking works such as Rebirth is Necessary, which we'll discuss at length tomorrow in a panel at the Atlanta Contemporary, Black to Techno, as well as the ongoing Afrofuturist installation Before Yesterday We Could Fly, which is at the Met. Nkiru has directed 2 episodes of Terence Nance HBO series Random Acts of Flyness, and her work has been shown in art institutions all over the world. We'll have also Elissa Blount Moorhead, who visited us virtually in the fall of 2020. She's a filmmaker, installation artist, curator, and writer who explores the poetics of quotidian Black life. Since 2013, she's been a partner in the pioneering TNEG production company founded by Malik Said and Arthur Jaffa, and co-directed with them Jay-Z's 444 long-form video. She co-directed Back in Song with Bradford, which is an experimental 4-channel film. And she created and directed a 3D mapping and augmented reality installation titled As of and Now. Elissa's creative work is always ensemblic, and we gravitated toward her to ground our ethics of study and to expand our view of what art making should look like. Shawn is a still photographer and cinematographer whose work has ranged from music video to experimental short film and narrative feature-length films to the limited series. He has collaborated with Young on numerous projects, including Black American Again, and he's part of the crew, the team that made As Told to God Thyself, which we're gonna screen later. His ongoing collaboration with Terence Nance began in 2010, and with the music video Something to Believe In, and has continued through an oversimplification of her beauty, Swinging Her Skin Again, Unveiling, and Jimmy Could Have Fallen from the Sky, before the award-winning HBO limited series Random Acts of Flyness. Peters has also shot contemporary interviews for Questlove's Oscar-winning documentary Summer of Soul. Stefani Saintonge is an award-winning filmmaker for her short film Fucked Like a Star, a member of the New Negress Film Society, an editor who frequently collaborates with Young and Moorhead, most recently in the 4-channel installation Back in Song, and with Young on Dina Lawson's Centropy. Against an industrial structure in which editing work is supposed to be invisible while being mostly done by women, Liquid Blackness member Anna Winter writes, Saintonge's editing makes palpable the very gendered but also very generative nature of this same editorial work. Finally, but not least, Kaya Lu. Stefani and Kaya are new members for us, and so we're very excited that they're gonna be here. They're here. Kaya Lu is a Los Angeles-based multimedia artist working primarily in post-production as a colorist. She has color-graded projects such as A Long Song for Latasha, which was nominated for the Best Documentary Short Oscar in 2021, the Emmy-nominated Pachinko, and If I Go, They'll Miss Me, which won the Short Film Grand Jury Prize at Sundance. In 2017, Lu began development of Colored Only, a post-production color studio, which is committed to, quote, proposing radical alternatives within post-production. Her more recent work has been screened at the Black Star Film Festival, La Biennale di Venezia, the Whitney Biennial, Tribeca Festival, as well as the International Film Festival in Rotterdam. I hope you are overwhelmed, as I am, by the talent gathered here today. And so we're gonna hear from 2 Liquid Blackness members for just a minute before we start the screening, and hope that some of the artists who just arrived from overseas will be here by the time the screening is over. We're here from... Derek Andre Jones, artistically known as D. Jones, will come up.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, and it's exciting to see all of you here, and also welcome to those who are joining us virtually in the live stream. Liquid Blackness, this ensemble, this group, this family of folks who are really engaging in a practice of care of blackness. Liquid Blackness began 10 years ago without an institutional mandate, and we have grown in tremendous ways to be able to bring in proximity to Georgia State University and people around the world a genuine practice of the care of blackness. And one of the things that we know is that although the practice of care, especially care for blackness, exists a lot of times against the notion of capital, that we also exist in a world that thrives on it. And so one of the things that we want to make sure that everybody knows is that if you have participated in Liquid Blackness events before, or this is your first time, that if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, and if you want to see and hear more of it, we invite you to become a part of the team that helps to create this through being able to donate to our cause. The Liquid Blackness website, liquidblackness.com, has a donate button, and you can hit that donate button, and you can send your tax-deductible, right, donations our way so that we can continue to provide a space that holds blackness in care and doesn't have to be subject to institutional benevolence in order to make those things happen. And so we invite you to contribute in dollars or in kind to our efforts to continue to care for blackness. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Darren Fowler. I'm also a member of Liquid Blackness, and like D. Jones was saying, I kind of wanted to speak a little bit to another aspect of the Liquid Blackness research group and study group, which is our journal. The journal started in 2013 and was an attempt to kind of reflect on the work of the LA Rebellion, which had come through and had a multi-week event. And it was an attempt to kind of reflect and engage with the work of that group and do, as D. Jones said, of like trying to produce a space that takes seriously the work of black art and produce a kind of a journal that is focused on objects and artists and the work that they do and the ideas that they produce. Importantly, Liquid Blackness, as Alessandra mentioned, was picked up by Duke University Press, which is very exciting and expanded where our work can go and what our work can do, and made it so that our journal can offer up even more spaces for those kind of engagements and those kind of collaborations within the kind of ensemble-like ideas that we've been trying to talk about over the last decade. Part of that work was we were adamant in transitioning to the Duke University Press that it had to remain an open access, public-facing journal. That importantly for this work, and it's something that will be talked about this whole weekend, is that we want to not produce something that is for the academy, but is for the community that is invested in this work. And so part of that kind of transition into the university press model and into an open access university press is that we have to find outside funding. And so part of what that's doing is Duke University Press has helped set us up with the Open Access Community Investment Program, which is a program that helps us find money and support and funding from university libraries and other institutions and organizations that are invested in open access work, and for Liquid Blackness in particular, for the work of Black studies and Black aesthetics. And so part of my ask here is, for those of you that are interested or invested and want to help support us, if there are your own university libraries or any organizations that are invested, that you think might be invested in this work and can help support us, please reach out to us and let us know about where we can kind of begin advocating for this work and begin building the funding we need to keep this organization sustaining and keep this journal functioning into the future. And so yes, so if you are able to help us with that, please reach out to the Liquid Blackness group through our website, or talk this weekend with Dr. Alessandra Rango or Dr. Lauren Kramer to kind of get more information about what that might be for us and for you or for your institutions. As always with this organization, the only reason that Liquid Blackness has been able to be successful as is because people have come and participated and engaged in this work and given space to our artists who give so generously to us. And so Liquid Blackness would not be possible without all of you showing up over the last decade. And we are all deeply, deeply grateful for that kind of generosity of your time, and your energy, and your commitment to the collaboration of this work. And so with that, I will hand it back over to Alessandra so we can get to why we are all here tonight, which is to see some amazing work and listen and engage with some amazing artists. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. We can start the screening. Thank you so much.
Okay, everybody seated and comfortable. Welcome, welcome. I know that you've just had a chance to see that breathtaking film. Can we have another round of applause for that gorgeous film? So I am Michele Prettyman, and I just want to say just a very brief sort of opening, if not an invocation. I want to just thank Alessandra. We're going to try to get through this without tears. But I remember being at this institution where I got my master's and PhD, and I remember meeting Alessandra. And it was a meeting of two souls. It wasn't just a dissertation advisor and a student. And we have been sort of holding each other down for many years. So thank you for all that you've meant to so many of us. And we commemorate 10 years here, but we also commemorate many years of friendship. So thank you for that. So backstage, I'm just kind of listening and watching these folks. Two people who I'm just meeting, Stefani and Kaya. Shawn, I think this is my first time meeting you, but I've met Bradford and Jenn, and of course my girl Elissa at various Liquid Blackness events. And so again, this idea of a family reunion or a homecoming to me is an appropriate way to think about this space. And of course, we know what homecomings are, whether it's your church homegoing or your college homegoing, but I want us to also think about this idea of what it means to experience the return, right? To come back to a place that in some way grew you, shaped you, challenged you. And so there are people for whom this may be your first Liquid Blackness event, so welcome to the initiation. To those who have been here, whether at Georgia State as students, faculty, as community members, and certainly as those who have been a part of this 10-year process, again, I want to extend gratitude to you and appreciation for all that you have done. So a round of applause for everyone again, please, please, please. And now, I told somebody, I don't remember who I was talking to, I said, yeah, it's gonna be 6 people. And they were like, 6 people on a panel? I was like, yeah, no, but we're gonna get it done. We're gonna get it done. Can we start with some folks who contributed to the film that we just saw? It's almost like you gotta raise your hand if you were a part of that film. There's gonna be several people on the stage, right? Elissa, yes, put it up. I wanna start with something, I've been watching this film over and over again, never seeing it on a big screen, and I was telling Elissa that it looks so just gorgeous on the big screen. You don't get all of that on the laptop screen. But I wonder if you can start by just telling us how, as a collaborative team of people, you sort of together come to an understanding of how to represent God, consciousness, the universe. How does a collaborative team do that? I can see sort of one person having a vision of what a God would look like, but how does a team come together to imagine that?
Y'all hear me? Well, I mean, you know, I think the piece, everybody, thank you for coming.
I'm sorry, Brad, before we start, we have to give names. Let's give names. We gave all of your beautiful bios, but let's just make sure that we introduce yourself as you speak so everybody knows.
Okay, I'm Bradford. Well, you know, when we think about God, we think about oneness, right? We think about, some of us think about oneness. That's not a universal principle, but some of us think about oneness. And I think the way the whole project spawned was, it was really an exercise in anonymity. It was really a thirst to be faceless and bodiless, but one spirit, you know? And this comes out of tradition, which, you know, in some ways kind of goes without saying, but then there was also like this thirst and this need to be, with regards to like film culture, it came out of this desire, the project came out of this desire to kind of mosh down this idea of auteurship, you know, and what's so common in film culture, commercial film culture, independent film culture actually is this idea that a vision is a singular thing, that it comes from a singular body, it comes from a singular mind, and there's no sense of intervention from something that is outside of our body. And so, you know, the Umma Chroma, which is the most messiest collaborative gathering of artists, really kind of came out of a response to this sort of like earthly Western violent film, put a crown on one person and deem them the best of all of us, and you know, and it came out of that idea that like, I don't want any of that. I just want to be with my friends, the people I love the most, in God consciousness, in oneness, where we can all contribute and say things in the way that we please, in the time that we please. We didn't have any of the like normal sort of ungodly constraints on the process. So, I mean, that's kind of really how it came about. Really, it's just we're redefining oneness. You know, redefining what, you know, God and our ancestors intended for us, which is to hold hands and be together.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah. Anybody else want to add?
I would just say that it was also something that was anti-capitalist, and it was something that was without patriarchy, even though there were men involved, you know. And, you know, like Bradford said, it really dealt with tapping into the unseen, which sounds antithetical to things that are of something that you just watched, but it really is more about what's behind it, the vibration of it, than it is the picture show, you know. So.
Anybody else?
I just want to add too. I think also it's. I think what that space allowed us to do was a meditation in process as well. I think oftentimes our industries has this obsessive relationship to output and the eventuality, essentially. And I think for us, we're, you know, as much as we are a filmmaking collective, but also in a way a research collective and a process-driven collective, you know. We're doing more processing than we are making. We're doing more collaborative thinking than we are making. And I think what it allowed us was an honest exercise of how we work individually and also collaboratively as artists. So yeah, it was a lot of that too.
Wow. Jenn, as you were just talking, it reminded me of, again, all of the things that can constrain creativity that you've all alluded to already. Capitalism, just, as you say, just ungodly kinds of constraints on human life and labor and what those things mean. I wonder if you can speak to people who are thinking creatively about how to get work done, right? Because as I was listening to Bradford, it seems to me that there has to be something that comes before, to your point, the output, that it can't all be about the outcome, the output, but that what kind of work do you do personally to ground your work? And you mentioned friendship and care, and I know that you all, Elissa, your daughter's here, and Shawn, spending time with her, saying what's up to her. So that's a part of it, right? That there is more here than just doing work or an output. How do you ground that? How do you make that a part of your practice? It doesn't just start, you wake up and say, oh, I'm just gonna collaborate, I'm just gonna care about these people. But walk us through sort of the grounding. Is it in friendships? Is it walk us through some of that for people who are trying to sort of, in their own spaces, engage with the people around them in a productive kind of way, but in a way that still makes some sense, right? That makes some, that respects human life and everybody's labor. How do you, yeah. Back to you, Brad.
I'm only doing it because they all looked at me. They all. Mama Elissa looked at me first, so I have to assist. I really think Elissa should build on this, but I will say, just because that's her whole life work is the challenge. We're rethinking, that's why she's so special to us. I will say that just to take it back to the film, just to give the process of making the film some context, something happened briefly. There was an interesting tension between film culture and Black classical music culture that was discovered in the process of making the film. So what I mean by that is that film is a very young art form. It doesn't originate from any source of resistance. Its primary focus is eugenics and commercialism. So we're Black people trying to engage in that art form and try to figure it out. Malik finding the like God particle amongst all the trash. That's kind of what the film is really for us. And then there's Black classical music. So, you have something that is formally forged in resistance, is the only American art form, is completely its own life form that, and this is the part that I kind of feel like answers your question, the thing that's really interesting about Black classical music, AKA jazz, is that every 10 years it kills itself because it sees that it's becoming something that it doesn't want to be, or it sees that it needs to regenerate something new. It needs to change its tone. It needs to change the way it engages with itself and the people that come to enjoy it. In that sense, like anything that gets in the way of euphoria, it disappears. So I think that was really interesting in the sense of burning pine cones so that you could have a render a new forest. These practices of getting rid of something in order to generate something new really was before we could even, it's something that we should have explored before we went to make, but we had to make it to understand that. But now, you know what I mean? Now going into it, we will be prepared and have done the work to burn something or get rid of something or exercise something before we get into the process. So my mind is getting rid of something, exercising something, discovering a new self, a new form before you actually engage. When you do that, then you can all the things that really get in the way of making they're there, but you can approach it in a fresh new way where it's more equitable, more just, more godly for those engaged.
Yeah, Elissa, I do want to come to you a little bit about that, about this idea of creating the world that you want to live in, the world that you want to create in, and what it is that you do specifically to help not just the people around you, but I think your tentacles just reach in so many places. I just wonder if you could talk about that a bit.
So I just got off a 9-hour flight, and I might be, and I've been away for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and not talking a lot, so it's really jumbled in my head, but I have been thinking a lot about the things I always think about, and one of them, when I think about the people, all of the people at this table, I think about this idea of transcendence, which is what I've been thinking about for the last 6 weeks, and how, as Black people, we have found a particular kind of, I guess, corporeal also, but really metaphysical fugitivity in creativity and in being together and being ourselves and being authentic. And so one of the things that Brad and Shawn and Jenn and Terence, who's not here, did was to transcend a necessarily hierarchical process, and in exchange created something that AJ has described before as sort of passing energy, you know, in a sort of egalitarian way, not up and down and through sort of a prescribed way of making. So, you know, and I think about that, you know, for example, people talk about editing as a post process, which is a funny word to me, right, Brad? Because Brad says, we just gather a big giant bag of things and then Stefani makes the movie. You know, and so flattening that idea, I think is like a big way that we're able to feel comfortable. And I've talked about it as being very anti-patriarchal. And particularly with this project, the proof of it was the way that the subjects came together and embraced it. Not just the children that were in the film, but their parents, the community members, everybody that had to be around us to make something look the way it looks and feel the way it feels, more importantly, feel the way it feels. And that's down to the fact that the people that we work with are just really dope and really committed, and not in some dogmatic, pedagogical, you know, you have to do this and this is anti this. It's really genuinely what they love. It's genuinely how we feel. If something is good, it comes into the process. If someone is nearby, you know, whether it's Denzel's child or Brad's 4-year-old, it's all part of how we're living organically, and it's just transferred into this work. So, you know, I feel like when I'm thinking about process, I'm thinking just, you know, if people could just be themselves, which is necessarily prohibited. So for, you know, for my part, I don't know who called, Terence or Shawn, I don't know who called and said, you know, would you be the casting director? I've never done that in my life. And because it's them, I'm like, of course, you know, yes. And then that process, if I dare anybody to walk into a room with these creatives and figure out who's doing what, right? Because everybody's voices, everybody's aesthetics are clear, everybody is, you know, in love with each other and in love with being in love with each other. So something that I thought was super interesting and sort of divine is that the process of going into the community and getting them to participate in community making, which is, I would describe it that way, as opposed to going out and casting people, because that's not, we had to sit and talk to families and chill out and vibe with people. There wasn't a board with images tacked up and calls, you know, it wasn't central casting by any stretch, right? I had to, you know, the couple that you see there, my father introduced me to them, and they happened to be in a dance club together, a group where they did like couples dancing, and you could see that. Obviously, they really, I think something blossomed while we were shooting. Low key. So it's what you're seeing is the real deal. But one of the things, the student that was playing the saxophone, he's someone that I had just been getting to know. His family is amazing. He's definitely did not just fall from the sky. His very intentional parents who are incredible Baltimore people. And, so I had just been sort of tracking him and trying to figure out how to be involved in his life and have him involved in our lives. So again, not casting, just trying to bring him into the world. And then at the same time, I didn't know, but Kamasi's band member was like, there's this young brother you got to get to know. And he had been talking about him and trying to figure out how to have him in his world. And then on a third side, the gentleman that runs Sax Camp, which you saw him, he played his teacher, I guess. I called him and I was like, if you could have anybody, show us what they do on the sax, whatever, who would it be? He named this kid. Wow. So the universe, the community, everybody was conspiring to bring this child into our realm. And it was just, when I told Kamasi, he was like, wait, what? This is, and since then, I mean, we keep up with him all the time. I talk to his mother every couple of months. So that's not casting. I don't know what that is. And that is down to the fact that they really trusted everybody at the table. They went and looked at everybody's work. All the parents were like, oh, okay, who's this person? They treated them more like aunties and uncles for the day. They were like, that's great that you're making something, but I'm handing over, And so I think in the end, we had like 50, 60 people we were working with, and the intimacy was like that with each one of them. So I don't know what that means. I don't know where I went. I tell you, I was on a 9-hour flight. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I think it's important that we add to this conversation that, some of us at the table, we live together, not in the same house, but in the same community. And literally, I talk to Elissa every day for 5 hours. I talk to Bradford at least twice a day. Every single morning we get up and get coffee together. His little daughter has a nickname for me. You know what I mean? Like we fully live in community, not in a esoteric or abstract way. We eat each other's food. We do karaoke. It's very middle-aged. And so I think it's important that you understand that I've literally slept in Terence Nance's childhood bed in Dallas. Literally. I was at his house in Dallas and slept in his childhood bed. You know what I mean? So there's a residue of trust, that I've lived in. Elissa and I lived in Elissa's brownstone in Bed-Stuy 400 years ago. You know what I mean? We know each other. I knew about Jenn before we met. All about, and that's so we all come from a similar pedagogy in terms of what we watched, what we read. These guys are Howard alums, so they come from the Holly Garima School, which is a whole school. You know what I mean? So I think it's important that these things are lifelong pursuits. And I think the thing that America teaches us, unfortunately, is to be hyper-individualistic and not build communities. And what that does is destroy. When you don't have community, then people litter and their grandmas have to walk through it. People don't care and love and don't worry about if someone can't afford rent in their community because they can afford it. They don't care if the price of beer goes up to $15 because their bodies show up and then everything escalates in price. So we understand, what we've kind of understood for each other is that everything revolves around the micro, and that is love, care, and community. And so if you see that, that's what that is.
Wow.
I was going to add too something about the order of making. A lot of the way, or a lot of the approach of what we're taking is the work essentially acts as an evidence of the living, So we're doing the living, and the work serves as a document of that, material document of that living. So it's not, in an arse-backward way where it's like you create we're creating the work in some weird, laboratory type, situation. It's more so we're out in the world living. And the experiences that we're having is what's creating what you see. And then also I think too, a lot of the way we think about film, we're almost using sound and music we're borrowing from sound, we're borrowing from music. And so when I think about the way we're not making in a way where we're sitting on top of the notes, right? We're making in a way where we're at the fringes of the notes, where we're a little bit drunkard, we're a little bit, things are a little bit, they're not falling into this kind of Western notational, quantized, moment-to-moment thing. The moments are happening in the in-between, and the feeling predominantly is inhibited in the in-betweenness. It's not sitting on the note. So much of what life is that. It's often not, when I think about memory and recollection, I'm not, when I think about the feeling of an experience, it's not the experience, it's the getting ready. It's how did the air feel that evening? It's, or was I listening in the car on the way there, more so than the thing that I'm going towards? And so that's why I say the work is the evidence of the living, And so to kind of go more directly to your initial question, what I encourage people to do is to live, really, and to not assume that filmmaking is, well, for us at least, it's not separate to our lives. It's intertwined, in our lives. And so I almost just want to encourage people to, those things that feel like they're almost throwaway are the thing. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Wow. Following a couple of things that have already been said, Kaya, I want to turn to you because I think as I was reading about you in preparation for all of this and getting to know your work and sitting with your work, I was struck by one particular comment you made about sort of the lineages of things that sort of informed you. And when Elissa, I think Elissa mentioned the notion of the micro, and I think this is true for Stefani, that these small things are the important thing. They are the thing, right, to Jenn's point. But I remember you describing seeing a photograph, I think it was of your grandmother, and the purple in the photograph, it just spoke to you. So maybe talk about how so much of what we're hearing, it sounds like that informs some of your work as well, and the intimacy there in your family.
Yeah, I mean, for context, my grandfather was a photographer. He was also in the Navy, and he used photography to not only document his experiences around the world, but to also bring them home. And over the years, those photographs were stored in the basement or in photo albums and, just kind of scattered around the house. But I think the thing that I pull from that is the spiritual metadata that is inherent in those images and how those images have deteriorated over time, whether it's the colors warping into these unique purple tones or whether it's mold, growing on the photograph itself because of how it was stored, or how an image just kind of develops its own life after it's processed, and how the celluloid can lose its color or its pigment, and then when you scan it, 30 years later, it just has its own life that nobody could have really ever imagined. And I'm really interested in using that as a central point within my practice to try and reimagine how we perceive color, or to push things in directions that we might not necessarily see in real life. And I find that really fascinating because it's highly imaginative and it's also extremely surreal to a certain degree. And so that's kind of what I've been using as sort of, the driving focus behind some of the colors that I'm interested in rendering in a lot of my projects.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I just encourage, of course, all of you to do your own digging into this kind of archive that our artists and filmmakers over this entire weekend have, because as I said, I was really sort of sitting with your work. And there's another, I think, well-known photograph where there's this sort of pinkishness, this pink tone, and it's just amazing to think of how color can make you feel so deeply. And again, I think we've been trained not to see these things, but to, again, to Jenn's point, like, it's like we're told, look at this, and it's like, no, that's not the thing, right? You're missing it sometimes when you're sort of trained to throw away the thing that is actually the thing. Stefani, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about, in the same vein, thinking about how attentive you are to, or so much of your work is to the small, the granular, helping us to see that in a different way, whether it's Fuck Like a Star or even some of your other work. Maybe talk a little bit about that. And I'm thinking about how, like, in As Told to God, it's sort of, there are sort of these grand gestures, and it brings it back, it grounds that too, but you're really interested in sort of this, this micro granular aesthetic and impulse.
Yeah, I think it's very specific to Fuck Like a Star, right? And it's based off the text that I'm adapting. So I guess to explain Fuck Like a Star, it's a short that I did about ants. It's about women. It's a metaphor for women's labor, and it's an adaptation of a paragraph from Toni Morrison's book Tar Baby, and it's just about the life of an ant. And she's relating it to, women's labor and just like how sensual it can be, but also taken for granted, overlooked, just like an ant, and also endless, the endlessness of the labor. And I think about that a lot, I guess, even as an editor, trying to continue to be a filmmaker. I'm a new mother as well. There's just a lot of gendered labor in my life, and so maybe that's why this film and this text is just, it's something that just keeps coming up for me, even though I did the film 5 years ago. I find new meaning in it every time I think of it or watch it, or I have to talk about it or what have you. But I think, the focus on the small and the micro, it really is about, for me in my life, just feeling like as a Black woman, constantly invisibilized, again, taken for granted. But to be an artist, coming from that perspective, you have to, and especially a filmmaker, where you're expected to be, there's just a personality you're expected to bring into spaces in order to be taken seriously, in order to pitch, present yourself. It's contradictory. It's very hard, I think, navigating those different, I guess, parts of the self. And so I think, I don't know, with Fuck Like a Star, it's about not only, that experience, but also like seeing the majestic in I guess, in the labor that I've experienced amongst women that I grew up with, that are in my life, that have made me, that have formed who I am, but also in myself, I guess, which has been a struggle, and continues to be a struggle, and continues to be something that I have to keep reminding myself of. So.
Wow, thank you. Since several times, a couple things I want to come back to if we have time. Let's see how we are on time. Are we, anybody? Okay.
We're going to be here all night.
We could be, honestly, so rich. I want to come back to music a bit, but I kind of want to stay with what you were just saying, and how important it is for people's families, in whatever form, are integrated into this, friends, community. Do you find that, and this is, I think, following you, what you were saying, Stefani, do you find that there are spaces for you to bring the fullness of your life to work, right? To the work that you're doing. And again, as folks here have already sort of talked about, this idea that they can't necessarily be separate, but you're saying, well, it's hard though. It's not easy, right? Trying to create a different dimensions of who you are and also still stay creative and stay moving. Maybe speak to that a bit if you can. I know it's it's fresh for you. It's something you do that you're living through. And anyone else, weigh in on how, you know, again, life sort of is the generative force, but then sometimes there are real challenges there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been lucky in general in where I've placed myself and the people I've been able to collaborate with that have asked me to collaborate with them, like Umma, Chroma, like Brad, and that I'm working with people who really respect my instinct and really respect, I guess, what I'm bringing to the projects. I wasn't really an editor before. I started editing, honestly, and now I feel like that's mostly what I do these days. And I think it's because of, I made that switch because, I mean, I don't know, editing to me, I thought it was like a technical thing. I saw, even for I edited my own work, and for my own work, it was always instinctual and very personal and intimate. But when you're working with someone else, I just thought that I just saw it as something that like required some, I don't know, special technician knowledge that I just wasn't, I didn't have access to, or I didn't train myself or what have you. But I don't know, working with Brad and Umma, Chroma, I think it's a special experience, actually. I don't think it's typical that I've been able to work with people who actually respects the instincts and respect like me playing with the footage in a way that maybe isn't typical, but I don't know, they see what I'm trying to do in a way. So yeah, so I feel lucky in that I've been able to navigate that. But there are times where you have to, for money, right? I have to work in a more commercial or with other directors and it's not that experience at all, where it becomes the more aspect of filmmaking, where you become like a servant for the project, and a servant in all the ways that servitude, right, is viewed. Even though I think a lot about, again, caretaking, especially being a new mother. There's ways that servitude can be beautiful. It can be beautiful to experience, depending on who you're serving, right? But the industry, yeah, it's the dark side of it. And so that's been tough, like going between the spaces, working for directors who don't treat you like that at all, who completely respect what you're bringing, and then switching to the more typical experience, which can be really challenging to the self. Like, it just questions, like, are my instincts not right? Like, am I not, like, is there, like I said, that special technician knowledge that I didn't gather, or that I need to learn? But, so yeah, I don't know if that.
Yeah. I just want to, in praise of Stefani, just talk about that idea about, even the idea of technical skill having some sort of place of superiority over the rhythm that Stefani brings to a project. I mean, talk about the behind the beat, it's music, and it's, when I was in, I went to art school, and one of the things, I had a really long talk with a professor once that talked about collaboration. And the short version was that collaboration is really relenting and really, being humble, and that, if you design a beautiful bowl, of course, your instinct as an artist is to be like, this is so wonderful, this is the best thing, and I really love it. And then can you then take that beautiful thing and give it to someone? Do you have that ability to then keep passing it down the line, and then to be excited and humbled by what the new thing might be? And it's sort of, and it goes both ways, it goes back and forth. So as an example, when we were working on Back in Song, you couldn't tell what was left, right, front, back, first, last. And, and I think Brad is especially adept at creating that kind of environment. And we were working with researchers like Rihanna Jade Parker and Stefani, and sometimes this might be the front part of the day, sometimes it might be us just gathering, or sometimes the researchers aren't researchers, they're really we're doing like thought forming together, right? So they'd say something, and then that would send us off to go read something, and then we'd come back, and then Stefani would say, what about this? So, you know, as creatives, you have to be able to respect someone, to be able to give up that bowl, to see what might come back, to know that, you know, where your strongest ideas can be helpful and where you can relent, you know, and that requires a very specific kind of confidence and commitment to your collective creativity and belief in that collective creativity. So, you know, creating those scenarios is easy when, you know, you have a voice, a creative voice like Stefani, but, you know, I understand that there's scenarios where people are really, really tied to something else. In terms of execution or, you know, a linear story or, you know, or whatever it is that people have to do. So I think it's really important too for everybody that is, you know, creating work in both a commercial sense or, you know, in an art space, that you give yourself time to do that, because that's how you erase the self-doubt. Because there's no way, the way that I've come to this work, there's no way that I would feel confident if I didn't have those spaces to be myself and be that person. And to have someone to go back and forth and say, wait, am I thinking about this correctly? Or, you know, and where you can have, quote unquote, success. And, you know, like me and AJ have things we've never finished, or, you know, and I think it's successful because it happened. So, you know, you have to be in a space where you can feel that way so that you can keep going, you know.
Yes, please, go ahead.
I'm gonna try to say something. It's gonna be super messy, but I'm gonna try to, because you know, as you want to say something, but you feel nervous before you want to say it, and you're like, okay, now you have to say it. So bear with me as I try to track this. But it's funny, because like when you come to places, and again, I'm making a big assumption here, so I'm not. This is based on a previous experience here and a big assumption, But it's interesting how when you come to places or spaces like this, that the same out-of-body, the same sort of disconnected thing we experience in other spaces is actually, and refreshingly so, like an alien concept, right? And what I mean by that is, my notion of this space is that everybody here assumes that no matter how big of the collaboration, no matter how many hands are engaged in the process, everybody is bringing themselves to the table, right? That here, it's kind of hard to imagine it any other way. Like, for instance, when we finished Selma, we went to this, if there's an Illuminati, we went to the Illuminati gathering. We ended up in Santa Barbara at this thing. And I was, and the only two people that I like, 3 people that I could find like that, I was okay, I understand. These are like folks. It was like my wife, of course, John Singleton, and Jason Moran. And John Singleton came into the circle in the most, like he came in, he was shouting down the hall before he got into the circle. Because it was just like a little bit, he came in like, he announced to the whole room, like, I'm going for this circle over here. And he came into the circle, he broke all of this unnatural tension that we were already talking about in the 3 of us, and he came with this whole self into the circle. And it was a relief for everybody, because then we were like, oh, we're not alien here. The way we want to interact with the world is an alien. So that was like the first moment. Then we were talking, and I asked Jason, I said, hey, do you think you'll score another film? He was like, never. I'm never gonna score another film. And I was like, why? And John Singleton was there too, and my wife and everybody was listening. And he was like, because first of all, I don't know how y'all get anything done. And because there's too much mitigation between the work you've created and the intended receiver. And the most important thing for me is the audience. Those eyes and those ears in front of him. And what it reminded me of that day, again, I know this is messy, but like what it reminded me of is from his lens, from his perspective, the things that we are cynical about, or the things that we feel are obstacles between us and the thing that we have one of the most intimate relationships with. Again, that's also the thing about this venture of collaboration in film, is that everybody assumes that is, for some people, we all know them, it's more important than their children. But for some folks, for him, it's hard to imagine it any other way. So I'm trying to use that as an entryway to say that I think it's important for us to remind ourselves that the way in which we conduct our process is the only way. The way in which we conduct ourselves is actually mainstream. The way in which folks that want to mitigate get in, because we need, and it's, you know how it is. For me, the greatest experience of my life is having children. I got 3, and when you got 3, it's like, that's 3 totally different personalities. I'm flexing a little bit. I got 3. I'm happy about that. But also just because that's 3 different human beings, and you have to deal with them. Everybody needs space. Everybody needs their moment. One needs to be heard at breakfast, but doesn't want to be heard at dinner. Like all of the things that you have to navigate, the messiness of it, but like the thing that's common is that everybody wants to be heard. And in that space, there's nothing more messy than that to me. In that space, we all find a way to give plenty of space to let the children be heard in the healthiest spaces, for them to be heard, seen, understood, and make a contribution. But when we step out of that space, it's almost like we have a bull switch that we turn off, and we say, oh, all of that thing that happens in 99% of my life, where we have to balance. Like in Baltimore, 14 of us just came together and bought a 60,000 square foot building. I don't really care about the building. I'm just like 14 ninjas got together and bought a building together, and we're all still not just friends, like picking each other's children up, or you know what I mean, like that, and it's an extended family, clearly. But then there's a bull switch that switches off when we go to interact with majority cultural folks who look and feel in many different ways. Surprisingly, we don't have to go into that, but majority cultural folks, those who work from the majority cultural landscape, when we go to work with them, that whole thing gets turned off. And then we forget that that's actually normal. That's the thing that we do. Aren't we all surprised that America isn't fully burnt to the ground? It should be. It is. I mean, I'm just saying, but it is in spirit. We just don't. But it is in spirit. But we don't know we're dead yet, right? But for some reason. Okay, I'll take our block in Baltimore. I always laugh. I was like, I don't never see the police, never. And I'm hypersensitive about the police. I don't ever see them. But maybe somebody's laying in your car one night and you wake up, get out of my car, man, get out of there. There's nothing in there, and they fully walk away. Maybe there's that. We had a couple of moments where some things happened on the block and Mama Elissa raised hell and it stopped. But there's some order and there's some agreement, and there is, on the surface, a lack of chaos. But we go into the most regimented, falsely organized environment, and it's nothing but chaos. And what we do is, what we tell ourselves is that that is of importance, that seems to consume our whole tongue and our brain and our body, and that we forget that what we're actually doing is, this is the way it's supposed to be. I mean, I think we should be here talking about it because we have to remind ourselves of that, but we're actually living in it every day. And I can't imagine, and I guess I say that just, I don't want to centralize it, but like, maybe it's easier for me to say it because there's a set of known circumstances, like just my individual journey, there's like a set of known circumstances that are essentially a security blanket that get you to the moment where when you go into these more majority cultural spaces, the thing that really has to happen is, first you have to go armed. You have to come with armor. And the armor isn't what Haile taught us, because that was, he even told us, this is all theoretical, you better go together, right? So knowing that when you step into those spaces, you have to really have a mattress or a security blanket to fall back on, so that when they come to do whatever it is that they do, which we can go on and on about what that is, that you're undamaged, and that if you have something at home or something in the community that is precious, that thing can continue to go on even when you're removed from the situation. But really, the thing that we bring to the table, and I know this is more than a notion, is that what we bring to the table in these spaces is that we have knowledge of self. We know who we are, right? We're all in this room together. Most of the folks in that space are in that space because, for whatever reason, and they're loved, you know what I mean? Like, they're loved. They have mamas and daddies and grandmothers and grandfathers that love them. They're loved. They're somebody's child. But nobody's hugging them, you know what I mean? Like, nobody's asking them how they're doing in that space. It's fear. And so, actually, if we're not coming to these spaces 100% dogmatically about, and I mean in that space, in the space where we're together raising, it's compromise, logical compromises. But in that space, logic is kind of a strange currency. You actually have to be, it's like with my partner, she's like, I just need you to make the decision. Because when you make the decision, that's sexy. I just need you to make the decision. Like, somebody just needs to make the decision. You know what I mean? Somebody needs to make the decision. And so I think we're not outliers, actually. You know what I mean? Like, our fugitivity is like everything for us. That's the lack of fugitivity in that space doesn't mean we don't go there. It means that we have to find a strange balance when we go there. But we're prepared. And if you don't want to go there, don't go there. Fully don't go there. Kevin Everson, who is the most prolific black filmmaker of all times. Nobody made more films than Kevin Everson. Kevin Everson, not 1 ounce of desire to go there. Not a single ounce of desire to go there. He's clear on what it is. Yeah. I just think we have, again, I know this is messy, but like, I just can't imagine it any other way. And everybody actually knows it can't really be any other way. Like, we enjoy giving something to Stefani, and call me when you're done.
And waiting.
Show me what it is, because I don't know what it is. I did this thing, now it's out of me now. It's like, it's yours. It's like, and I'm done, I'll be done. It's like, you know, in that world, there's like there's an energy of insecurity, we all know, but there's a thing, right? Shawn and I and all of us, we all laugh about it. It's like, without the camera in cinema, it's radio or theater, right? So the camera is the thing. Like, without the camera, then we don't have cinema. It's motion picture. But there's an interesting I'm gonna be done there, but that's
So I'm gonna give you all an example. Brad and I were just working in Manchester, right, last week in England on a commercial. And our AD is a guy, a brother named Kenny, and we bring with us from LA everywhere we go. And so we were leaving, and we were all just kind of reminiscing on the shoot or whatever. And Kenny was like, yeah, man, I be over here and these clients, and they're just not used to y'all. They're just so surprised. And then the crews, too. The crews are always ready for the shoe to drop. They're always like, when are these dudes going to be assholes? When are we going to be stressed out? When is it going to be? Because they're so used to these lunatic, pathological directors who are fully fear-based, a fear-based client, dropping the shoe on them and making them stressed because they're stressed. And so me and Brad be showing up mad laughing. Skipping down the road. Don't even go. The client, we don't even care about the client. The client be like, seriously. Client be like, Bradford, we need you to. Bradford be like, I don't care what y'all need. Seriously, right? And so we just really don't value, not that we don't value, we know we work for people, but we love our crews because that's who makes the work. And it's a vibration of love, and people are so not used to that, you know? And so I think it's because of who we are nurtured by. We know we going back to Baltimore.
I was gonna say, there's this thing. Again, I'm gonna be done. There's this. What he said. The process is there's a story, and everybody in this horizontal division of labor, community, and love, we all read the story, and then we say, funny enough, this is my story. It might be one dialogue. It might be a description of some dust in the corner. It's way more profound. Like Kaya said, it's about some decay, some mold, some revelation of something that's unpredictable. That you see and you're like, okay, that's my story. That's the only reason why you would do it. That's the only reason to do it. Any other reason is, I get it, you gotta buy some oat milk for your family, go do it. But in the best version, it's that. There's something in the script that you see. And then once you see that, then the director says, what do you see? Oh, I see my grandmother, I see my grandfather, I see these things, I see the decay, I see all of that. I see time, Stefani, you know. I see community, I see love, I see laughter, I see persistence, I see history. I see, okay, great, now you're coming with me. And it's highly curatorial. If there's 8 people interviewing for the job, then the director is not clear on what it is the vision is. I'm looking for that clarity. And then once you say I'm gonna do it, they have like a needle in their pocket and they fully inoculate you. They go, and they give you this virus. And you become a zombie of the story, right? And then what that allows the director to do is say, I'm not dealing with any of that stuff anymore because I've given it to you. Show me what it is I can't see. Be my mind's eye. Be my constructor of time. Be my director of color, texture, density, and spirit. You know what I mean? This is normal. This isn't some high level thing. This is like the fundamentals of film collaboration. Anything else is fascism. Anything else is dictatorship. Anything else is militarization. Anything else is capitalist. Plain and simple. It's like the other way there's no space for that. There's no space for that. But there may be. You probably did get inoculated. Maybe somebody gave you the antidote and you kind of woke up. But even if you woke up, you're still like, I still want to just get my grandmother in there just a little bit. And even when it's not safe, I think, be ready to be let go, be ready to be sent home. But I think you could like just slide it in a little bit. And if you slide it in a little bit and you're left sent home, at least when you're sent home to people that love you the most.
Yeah. I just got lost in whatever Brad was saying. I don't know what I was saying. Yeah, no, you know what I was thinking about when you were, when Kai was talking about decay and caring about decay and then being able to represent that, it's a like refusal of orthodoxy, you know, in a way, right? Because you're like, it's the B-side, right? It's what we're talking about, and well, I'll share that other story on Sunday, but I was thinking about orthodoxy, and I was gonna say, challenge you, Brad, like when he say, well, Jason won't do another score or whatever, he would if you asked him. Right? And, you know, Jenn, before I met Jenn, a physical person, I was already in love with her because Brad conferred everything I needed to know about her refusal of orthodoxy, her brushes with it, and how it's manifested in work that's the opposite. Same thing with Stefani. There was no interviewing process. There's no whatever. We got a project. Stefani's gonna help us make this what we want it to be or what we think we want it to be, or even better, what really happens is she's gonna make it something interesting and we're gonna follow and be really excited, right? And there's something about the refusal of orthodoxy in every part of our lives. It's everything we do, you know, the way we educate our children, refusing to live in New York and LA now at the moment. You know, all of those things are, you know, maybe it's a little bit of contrarianism in there, but you know, but it's it allows for a specific kind of generosity. So, as an example, the reason why I say Jason would do it for you, you know, is like when we were scoring a project that I won't mention that ended up being shelved, but we still had our same process, right? And still, and the client wasn't connected to it, and we don't change, and you know, you lose stuff or whatever. But in the end, Jason was like, we were talking about James Reese Europe, so he was like, oh, yeah, then whatever. And next thing you know, he sends me work, right? Esperanza. And you guys, maybe I'm romanticizing this, but I felt like we said, Esperanza, we want you to work with us, we want you to score something. And she looked at some of the images and some of the assemblies that you put together, and then she scores it. It's not like we're gonna go back and be like, okay, yeah, now we need a retake of this, and we need you to, like, did you do the work that you loved in response to what Stefani loved, in response to what we gave her from what we loved? Yes, then this is it. We're not doing no more. We're not gonna correct Esperanza Spalding's work. It's beautiful how we get it, and we you know, what is it? Live it how we get it how we live it, get it how we live it, and then it becomes this bigger, wider piece, right? So, you know, that kind of generosity and that kind of, you know, refusal of orthodoxy in every aspect. The way we live, the way we make, the way we think, the way we try to engage, the way we trust is, I think, a really important thing, you know.
I was just going to add something too. I think a lot of what we're doing is a practice of energetic repurposing, right? So I think what often we are made to feel, I think just structurally as an industry, we've centered the things that should be on the fringes, and we put to the fringes the things that should be in the center. So a lot of what we're doing is, you know, reconstruction, is a process of reconstruction, and, you know, paying attention to where and what needs it the most. I find so much, especially when I'm speaking with younger filmmakers or just newer filmmakers, there's so much energy and focus on the things that are not the work, right? And that's by virtue of, you know, what the system is and what the system makes you think you need to be or what you need to have to be able to do what you want to do. But it is quite radical in many ways what we're doing, where we are reasserting what we're reasserting what the structure should be to suit what we want. So rather than us melding to suit the machine, you know, we're making the machine meld to suit us. And I used to have this issue. I remember really early on making work where I'd say I want to do something, and you know, I'd be told by a crew member, "Oh, the machine can't do that." And I'm like, "No, I don't serve the machine. The machine serves me." You know, and you know, if I can extrapolate that, that's also, if you think about how we're making or want to make and how we're working, is really thinking about how do you serve yourself and your community first, you know. Before you worry about how will this fit within the machine, find yourself first. Find your voice first. Don't worry about how that voice is or isn't in relation to the voices that are out right now. Focus on that, you know. And, you know, so many times, even me individually, you know, you're thinking you're having a very singular experience. So when I put out my first film, I was like, nah, I'm not making film after this ever again. I'm done. Like, industry's gonna be done. Like, I'm never making a film. Because it felt so quiet and intimate, you know, to my own specific experience. And then you put it out, and then you find your tribe. And you find, oh, there's other people that think like this. And then, you know, you speak to people, and that encourages, oh, I went to art school because I watched this. And now I'm making this because I did this. And so I'm really talking about the power of seeing the value in what you have, you know, because first and foremostly, before any of this can become anything, we have to see value in the things that are close to us, you know? The value of the things in your home, the value of your relationships, the value of your experiences, your, you know, quotidian, like, day to every day. Those things are important, you know, and let those things, give space to those things to be able to show up, you know, for you and in the work. So something I wanted to say too.
Thank you. I think we're almost out. Yeah, go ahead and clap for that. Come on. We're almost out of time, but Kai, you look like you were going to add something a moment ago.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to piggyback on everything everybody was saying and say that the process is often the product, and that's all you get to walk away with. You know, I think many of us have experienced this, you know, thing of making a thing, you know, and it being completely tossed for whatever reason, you know, whether it wasn't creative alignment or, you know, they realized that you didn't want to be a machine anymore, and so it's, you know, just calls for time to walk away. But I think that although, you know, having to walk away from something as heartbreaking as that can be because of whatever it is that you poured into the project itself, sometimes that's necessary because it helps you develop a creative practice of detachment, you know, to be detached from what's happening depending upon the apparatus that you're battling, you know, in that process. And within practicing detachment, you get to develop a certain type of residue, you know, and that residue is something that you can dig back to and pull back to 10, 20 years, however, you know, from now when you do have that sort of creative freedom, because it's kind of like exercising a muscle. It's not always enjoyable. Training, you know, all of that stuff, you know, but it's things that you have to do to kind of develop a sort of toolbox that you can refer back to. And, you know, it's really sometimes a challenging thing, and, you know, it's necessary, but I'm really interested in how we practice detachment. I don't know if there's time for us to kind of talk about that at all, but that's something that's, I feel like, not talked about that often because we have to keep that to ourselves and just keep pushing forward. But, you know, that's a part of making the work as well. So
That was a word. Detachment. How are we on Q&A? We ready? Okay, so no Q&A. I'm sorry? Yep. Oh, okay, that's true. That's true. All right, save your questions. We have time, hopefully, over the next few days. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. For traveling all this way, for giving of your fullness. I think we all feel fed and nourished. So thank you very much, all of you. So we do have a reception, right? I don't know where it is. Y'all have to tell me where it is now. I'm gonna be wandering out in these Atlanta streets.
Hi, we welcome those who have reserved to come over. It's a good number, and we're very excited about it, in the CMII building, top floor, room 306, to continue the conversation and begin to ask your questions. But again, we're going to be together for 2.5 days, and we're looking forward to every minute of it. Okay.
Thank you. Let the celebration begin. Wow, that was good.